Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser Podcast, our ratings podcast with myself, Timucin, and Paul Bickler in his hoodie. What's going on, Paul?
What's happening?
Not much, not much. So I guess this is what I get for not being too worried about a game. I get a heart attack by halftime, or what the hell happened? Let's talk about the game first, and now obviously we'll go into our ratings. But what do you make of it in general?
Yeah, definitely not the way you drew it up, but I don't know. Special team for Liverpool to come back from that on a European night with that pressure. I think a tendency is to like anytime something like that happens in football is to like point blame internally at your own team and try to find like the faults that you can identify on your side. And I think part of that's natural, but I also think you have to give credit to Villareal. I mean, it was a tough night in a loud stadium. They came in and played like they had nothing to lose. The pitch had been drilled with rain for like 2 days straight, so they're playing in a swamp. And credit to Villareal for coming in and putting their foot down on the pedal and really causing some problems. I think they got a little fortunate on the first goal, but I mean, it put us in a spot where we had to react, and we didn't react well for 45.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, and I agree with that. I know, like when we were talking, I was more frustrated with our play. We were talking about the podcast last night about how we were expecting them to come out. Are they going to sit back? Are they going to attack? And obviously, they were in full attack mode. I just felt, in terms of our approach or mood, as Klopp likes to say, we just were not ready for that, which was kind of shocking. This team performs better when they have to perform, as opposed to kind of being able to get away with, not doing a lot, which was the odd part. But let's get to the ratings, because I know this might go all over the place today. So let's start in goal, as always, with Alisson. What do you have for him?
I had him at a 6.5. I didn't think there was a whole lot he could have done on either goals. I thought he did well coming out for the one on Lo Celso. I think it was Lo Celso that clattered into him.
Yeah, it was Lo Celso, because he tried to move him almost.
I thought he did well to come out and get that and get himself in a good position. Distribution was lacking a little bit especially in the first half. But overall, it's never outstanding to concede two, but I think he did all right.
Yeah, I have him at a 7 as well. I mean, like you said, both goals, not much he can do with them. Speaking of both goals, not much you can do, but there's some stuff you can do. Trent, what do you have for Trent?
Yeah, I think that assist second half probably saves Trent, but I had him at a 6 just because, he was positionally all over the place. Overruns the ball for the second one and is caught flat-footed because he's got nowhere to go. It was a tough first half for him, and he did some things okay offensively, which kind of saved him ratings-wise in the second half.
Yeah, I'm a 6.5 as well. And like you're saying, the second half kind of increases that. I thought he was very poor in the first one. I mean, the first goal, he should. The cross comes in. We'll talk about that side when we come to Roberson, obviously. But the cross comes in, probably should be stopped. But then he should know, he should look over his shoulder. That's pretty basic stuff there. How about Konate? What do you have for him?
I had him at a 6. He did some things that were all right, but, ultimately he was part of the problem, and he was a turnover machine first half. He gave the ball over away like numerous times in really bad spots instead of, at some point when you're in that situation, you just have to lump it out of play and reset. And I think there is too many times he was just trying to get it out and make something happen and turn it over in really bad spots.
I agree. I have him at a 6.5. I thought he was, the back line just did not look situated well today, and he kind of suffered from that because I think he relies on Van Dijk to run that show there. But I agree with the turnovers. A lot of what you get with Konate is that ground ball that comes between lines compared to Matip kind of, parading through. But that ball was intercepted almost every time, especially in the first half. I have the same actually for Van Dijk. I have 6.5. And the main reason is, especially with the first goal, and that was kind of like my disappointment, where he almost like was more focused on the. Yes, we can, by the way, Aaron. Aaron is asking if we can see his comments, but we're all over it. But I think he raises his hand for the offside, which it wasn't even close. So I don't even know what his complaint was. And I almost put some 2 seconds behind. I know we don't get scored on that initial sequence, but right afterwards, when we get scored, once the ball goes to the wing. So I had him at a 6.5 as well. What do you have?
I had him at a 6, which is exactly what I had Konate. Similar reasons you. He gets beat being concerned about the up, which by the way is like tends to be an ongoing thing with him. That's happened quite a bit this year, where he's like got his arm up and he's worried about the flag and seems to fall behind the play. I mean, in that situation, you're looking for somebody to stand up and sort of set the tone for the rest of the team. And I didn't feel like he was able to do that, and he continued to be a little bit of the problem when we were struggling.
Yeah, I know that's like, as a center back, having been there, done that, that's like your first inclination when they're like, wait, whoa, and stuff. But that was before VAR back in my day. Now that with VAR, I mean, even if it is off, it's going to come back. And even if it is off, they're going to raise the flag late anyway. So might as well keep going. How about Roberson? I am at a 7 despite maybe a few errors here and there. But I felt his work rate on that side was definitely superior to Trent on the other side. So I have him at a 7.
He was another 6 for me, all the way across the back. I just thought, he did some okay things going forward, but I thought he was pretty poor positionally, overrunning plays, late coming back a few times. I had him at a 6.
Let's get to the midfield. Let's start with Fab, who had an up and down game, I guess, to say the least. What do you have, Matt?
I had him at a 6.5. He was basically invisible first half when we were getting overrun in the mids, which was really concerning. Second half got stuck in a little bit, and then obviously has that goal, which is essentially created on the initial first pass sequence with him and Trent, where he turns one touch and pushes it through, and then has a little give and go with Mo. That first touch was tremendous, and obviously does well to look across the box, not see a far post runner, and then tuck it in.
Yeah, by the way, I mean, good thing we're not giving ratings for their team, because I don't know if there's a number low enough for their goalie. That guy is
a brutal match.
I have Fab at a 7, and obviously that goal saves it, makes a difference. And he was a lot better in the second half. In the first half, I don't know, it's almost hard to judge the first half, I guess, because it almost felt like everybody was all over the place. So we, I guess, keep going in midfield to Keita, who I have as a 7 as well. Kind of like the gameplay improved a little bit in the second half when we had the upper hand. It felt like when he could move the ball, he didn't try too hard. What do you have, Matt?
6.5. My whole squad is like right in the mix here. I had him at a 6.5. I thought there was just far too many turnovers, especially first half. But that was my concern with him in the starting lineup. I would have gone Hendo here just for the leadership and organization. But I mean, what can you say? On the back of his past performances, he's probably earned the start. I just thought he turned the ball over way too many times. I had him at 6.5. So
real quick before we keep going, because I felt the same way in terms of like Hando being needed there. When we go to an atmosphere like that, if you don't know his value now, you kind of see it in games like this, I think, where if you had him in the middle, he's the one who slaps people into place instead of waiting till halftime when we kind of like reorganize. He kind of reorganizes right there on the pitch. Obviously, we'll come to it when Diaz comes in. But what do you think that changes that? Just like an attitude change that transfers all over the field? Or just the fact that there's a better outlet now up top?
I definitely think Jordan Henderson helps when – like, I guess my main thing is, like, if you're in a dogfight, like, Naby's not the guy I'm picking, right? Like, I mean, we're sitting in the swamp slugging it out with these dude. I want a guy like Jordan in there because I think Jordan Henderson is going to give you a little bit more bite, a little bit more chippiness, a little nastiness, a little more urgency, and that's what that needed. There was not even a sense of real urgency after we went down by 1. It was just things weren't clean enough. And I think in a game, like, maybe we would have struggled with the quality, considering the conditions of the pitch. But I don't think the effort and the urgency would have been lacking, because I think Hendo would have been barking at people and kind of creating a little bit more urgency. That's just my take on that.
Yeah, maybe it wouldn't like that early goal would not snowball as much as it did without him on the field. So, I mean, one guy obviously you look to in terms of being able to kind of like control everything. What back would be Thiago? What do you have him at?
Yeah, I'm at a 6. I definitely think conditions today had a lot to do with it. But I mean, he by the large part he wasn't able to get a foothold in this game because we weren't able to control possession, and a lot of that has to do with just Villareal just going on the offensive. They were a better attacking side than we were in the first half. They pushed us for goals, attempts, everything. And when we don't dominate possession, that really takes away the best of Thiago.
Yeah, exactly. I am at a 6.5. I thought in the first half, the few moments where we were able to hold on to the ball only came from him. It felt like with his, like shoulder drop or like sudden turns and stuff. Those were like a few bright moments was coming through him. But overall, and I agree, and games like this, that's the way to kind of take him out of the game. So he's more valuable against teams that are going to sit back and try to hit us on the counter, like the first game. This game, they were not going anywhere near that. So let's go up top. Let's start with, which I have a couple of comments that I want to go back to, but let's keep finishing the ratings first, and then we'll kind of go back to those at the very end. Jota, who kind of got yanked at halftime, pretty invisible in the first half. What do you make of it? I know we talked about it in terms of, our probably best three up top right now is how we, with Diaz in there, with Mo on the right and Mane in the middle. What do you have for Jota?
I had him at a 5.5. Thought he struggled. I mean, we talked about how we don't love him on the left when he's not paired with Bobby, and he continues that, even though they plugged him in and sort of flopped him in there centrally at times. I just thought he was lost. I mean, 13 touches and a half of football for a Liverpool side is just not a good thing.
Yeah, I am at a 6, and that's probably might be slightly generous. It just he looked lost, and one thing that we really struggle with, which when we struggle with that up top with that press, it felt like they were coming through that press like freaking so easily. And whenever a team can do that and they can move the ball up and build from back and come out that easily to midfield, it's almost like too late because we already play a high line. So I thought that press up top was not working well, and everybody was kind of like all over the place. Matosh says he had to feel this way, making a sense of that Jota's goals really make up for his lack of everything else. When he doesn't score, he's almost always invisible. Do you agree to that?
I mean, it's probably an overreaction with some truth to it. And I say that because I see where Matush is coming from. I mean, it really is. If his impact isn't on the score sheet directly, how much of it do we really feel? I mean, then that's the thing about him. He tends to be clinical, right? But I mean, that's also can be the difference between a draw and a win in a lot of games, right? Just knowing where to be and having the ball fall to you. I think we notice it. I mean, it's now's the time to make that argument just because he's in poor form. It's interesting in a similar way that I think that Diaz coming on, lighting the world on fire and really being an option on that left side has really sort of reinvigorated Mane. It's conversely really negatively impacted Jota. So, I mean, will that be a continued trend or not? That's going to be the real question there on that.
Yeah, I mean, I know what Mateusz is saying, and I do agree. He is that player that it's almost like hard to take out because he might score any minute if he gets the chance in the box. But along the same lines, we do not play that way. We're not a team that plays that way. So what he does up top in terms of the pressing and stuff is obviously a lot more crucial. But I mean, moving forward, you would think you would only see Jota coming in either for rotation or when we're like chasing a goal because we need that extra body in the box. Let's go Mane. So as you mentioned that, let's start with that. What do you have Mane at?
I'd have about a 7.5. I thought he had a really great game. I thought his work rate was good. He was involved in just about everything good that happened. And like he's towards the top of the charts in the game for touches, involvements in 50-50 duels. And he won just about everything. So I think he did a lot of those things that you don't necessarily expect from an attacking player that positively contributed sort of changing the tide in the game.
Yeah, I have met an 8. I thought even in the first half when we were struggling, it felt like he was the only one that we could kind of get something out of, similar to what I was saying in Thiago in midfield. I thought up top, Mane was the only guy that you could kind of look to create some stuff, maybe get a foul and things like that, and actually use his body to keep the ball in possession when we were really struggling to keep possession. So I have him at an 8. Mo, I have him at a 7, and that might even be generous, to be honest with you. Kind of really want him to get that goal at the end to get him on the score sheet as well. I think it was good in terms of like keeping possession, especially in the second half, but not as dangerous, I guess, as you would want him to be.
Yeah, I had him at 6.5. You know, I think he said a quiet game all game, and I look down and he's got an assist. So it's like, I mean, it's just it is what it is with Mo. But I think at times they did a good job of putting him out on an island, and I think that he was one that was really affected, especially first half. You could tell we were trying to pump balls up top to him, and it was really difficult for him to run onto them just because the ball was dying. Like you would kick the ball and it would just basically stall the moment it hit the pitch, which made it pretty difficult from an attacking standpoint. But yeah, not his best performance. Just wasn't just that final thing's not coming off him right now. I had him at a 6.5.
So let's get to the substitutions. Obviously, with the game and balance, we didn't see the rotation that we want to see. I mean, we have like 4 players that came in after the 80th, so I know that's going to end up being a lot of NAs the way we do this. But Diaz comes in and pretty much changes the game. But that's what I wanted to ask me: is it Diaz coming in and changing the game, or is it just a different mood, if you will, that we come out with? Just a different attitude. We did come out the second half like a game we were trying to win, whereas the first half it felt like kind of like what Sparky Parky is saying in the comment section there. We almost like came out a little bit to not lose by, just get past this round and like move on to the next big thing kind of deal.
I definitely think you'd say he impacted the game. I mean, the fact that he's a traditional wide winger, I don't think it's talked about enough because both Mo and Mane have tendencies to play like inverted wingers where they like to turn inside up top. And essentially that formation becomes it becomes like some version of a 4-1-3-2 with 2 strikers up top. Whereas when Diaz plays in there and he stays wide, it opens up space in the middle for whoever's there. And I think that he's just a constant threat over the top in a way that Jota is when Jota's playing that left side, just because of his size and pace. I mean, he has the ability to just basically dog a right back. So I definitely think he impacts the game. But it was a number of things, part of it's momentum. But yeah, I had him at a 7.5 just because I did think he was super influential and obviously scores a goal.
I'm at an 8.5 as to, like you said, I mean, he did make a huge impact. And yeah, it is probably, I mean, to answer my own question, I think it's probably a half because he does give that like width and he kind of scares opponents, which I kind of like, and goes back to what you're saying. I think that's part of being a winger, but he's not a winger that always wants to stay outside either. He has that tendency to be able to keep coming in and almost like keep coming. I think he has that threat of the shots and being able to like swing the ball to the other side to Mo or Trent or whoever is coming up from that wing. But he has that speed and sometimes almost the will to go to the line, like just take the defender all the way to the line and like cross the ball. And so, yeah, I mean, he is my definitely like player of the match just because of, like what he brought to the table. Almost had his goal. I don't know that the water, I mean, he had his goal, but like the water, I don't know if that kind of like deal. Who was your player of the match?
I had Diaz as well. Yeah, I had Diaz just edge Mane.
Do you want to touch up on the guys that strolled in after the 80th minute?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have scores for people that play like 10, 12 minutes. You know what I mean? It was good. Yeah, it was good to get these boys in. But yeah, it was just a good win all around. To see them come back like that, it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I think we were all hoping for like a better rotation coming in. The game kind of sealed earlier, and I was kind of hoping that how we came out in the second half will be in the first half, but obviously situation is different. And yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. You said that in the Discord channel as we were talking to. Got to give them credit. They did come out. They know their stadium, and that's one of those things where the home field makes a bigger difference. I think, like they knew the pitch, they knew how it was going to be, and they were able to adjust to it a lot faster than we did. What I was disappointed is I can understand passes being misplayed and stuff like that because of the pitch or the weather conditions and kind of like the atmosphere, the momentum. I just felt like we were getting outworked, and that's probably the only part I didn't like because I mean, maybe we're spoiled because you never freaking see that. You never freaking see us being worked. So let's go back to this comments over here because I know you'll have a blast. So Aaron says, great stuff, lads. Personally, I'm still angry from 6 home losses in a row last season for the first time ever. But great achievement nevertheless. Let's hope City win tomorrow so that number 7 is in the bag and we can avoid a repeat of 2018 final. So okay, so I might crack at this real quick. I mean, first of all, I mean, you got to get over that, Aaron. I mean, that was, and I've seen this comment. I think I've seen like Aaron in groups post this about before too. You got to kind of get over that. And I know we talked about it here on the podcast before. Probably could have been avoided if we didn't keep playing midfielders as in center back. But either way, with what we had going with the injuries, we were not going to win that title. So we didn't lose the title. The sun comes up, hits the header, and we're in the finals now after all that. But more than that, because I'm assuming you're not going to do well too much on the 6 losses from last year as well, Paul. But in terms of like the game coming up tomorrow, what do you make of who would you want to see? Who would you rather see in the final?
God, I'd rather see Real Madrid for a number of reasons. It allows us to get some vindication for the last champions, for the CL loss we had against them when Mo went down. Also, I'm just sick of seeing City. I don't even want them anywhere near the final. I think it's almost better psychologically if they miss out on another final altogether. And I want to see the back of them. I'm sick of playing them, just like I'm sick of playing Chelsea.
I agree. I think I would prefer Madrid as well. Do you feel we have a better chance against one of them or the other, or is it just more like how you were saying, just kind of sick of things. You need a change of pace in terms of an opponent?
Nah, and I think people are making this big deal about the form, this unreal form, and it is unreal form that Benzema's on. But I think if I look at Benzema's form now in this Liverpool side, I'd be more concerned if I was Benzema, having to go up against Van Dijk and Konate, who's an absolute man mountain. He's not the most agile, and he doesn't have the top end pace. All he does have is a big body and a clinical finish. And you know that Konate and Verge aren't going to be afraid to put some muscle on him. So nothing Real Madrid does really bothers me or scares me too much. They're a hell of a side. I mean, all the teams at this point are going to be great. But I think if anybody's looking at this realistically, I think we're the teams that people should fear.
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, it's the Champions League final. You're not gonna have freaking like Shrewsbury Town or something like that. You're gonna play a good team. They're gonna have weapons. I think both do. City knows us better, but at the same time, we know City better. I mean, that game is a toss-up. With Real, it would be kind of like who's on their day, I guess, and really depends on how we approach the game. I do feel like if we're in full blast, yeah, this team is hard to stop. And you kind of saw that in the second half. It's just a different kind of machine. And it was more like the Liverpool that we watch regularly. So what did we learn today, Bickler, aside from the fact that we're going to freaking Paris?
We learned that the Spanish league doesn't have field drainage in all of their stadiums. And we learned that Luis Diaz guy is pretty good at football.
Yeah, I think I learned that. I mean, I guess I didn't learn it. I probably knew it already. But if this team plays a lot better when they're the aggressor and not just trying to kind of control things, when they're going after it. And I know Klopp was saying all the right things. Like we almost, it's the first half is over to 0. You got to approach it like 0-0 and stuff. But it just didn't feel like we came out like that. I literally ran from one game to Layla's game and watch that. So I haven't got a chance to see all the post-match comments and stuff like that. But I'm sure we'll go over those with the gang on Thursday, which will be on this week at 8 p.m. Central instead of our regular 7 p.m. Central. But I'm sure we'll probably dissect those a lot more. Well, Bickler, Thanks a lot for the ratings video joining me, and thanks to all those listening and commenting. See you guys Thursday night.